Let's talk sub-nationals. Enugu State, Peter Mbah, the executive governor of the state, has signed land use regulation in an effort to clarify real estate transactions. The executive order designates urban areas. Enugu North, East, South local government areas have been designated. He says it seeks transparency in land transactions. Let's take a listen to, or rather a look at some quotes from the governor when he signed this into law. So here's what he said. He said, "This is a major milestone that we have just witnessed. This is quite historic. This again is in line with what we witnessed a few weeks ago." And what did we witness a few weeks ago? Well, here's what they witnessed in Enugu State. He said, "A few weeks ago, we formally launched the Enugu State Geographic Information System, ENGIS, a system that is designated to fast-track applications for land titles and indeed other administrative functions relating to land." He continues, I said a little more here. What we have here today is going to bring clarity. As we all know, lack of transparency feeds corruption. This is really a major milestone towards our drive, not just to enhance the revenue of Enugu State. So he's saying this goes beyond revenue. I think this is our last quote from him. He says, "Beyond revenue, we will ensure ease of doing business where prospective applicants can easily know what their fees are and the timelines that the application will be processed." Let's head on over to Enugu State, where we have Barrister Chimaobi Okorie, who is a commissioner for land and urban development, joining us now. Good morning to you, sir. Happy New Year. So I guess, can you explain a little further how this works? How do these designations bring transparency to land transactions in Enugu State?
Good morning, Reuters. Good morning, viewers. So glad to be here. The executive order was signed by His Excellency, as we all know, designating some additional areas of the state as urban areas. In addition, of course, he signed into existence the land use regulations, which clearly details the various processes and procedures for all the numerous land transactions that, individuals, corporate organizations would want to make in Enugu. It also clearly defines who can approach the relevant processes, the payment processes, as well as the respective users. What this does actually is to tie up with the already established GIS office, which His Excellency the Governor commissioned just a few weeks ago as well. That is the ENGIS, Enugu Geographic Information Systems. And what it does is that it creates a very clear process for all prospective investors in the land's ecosystem and for all players, as a matter of fact. His Excellency understands the need for a shared prosperity for the Enugu in its entirety and for everybody. So what His Excellency Dr. Peter Mbah has done essentially is to push out beyond the borders of the Enugu city as we used to know it. He has recognized the need for some parts of the state based on, perceived and clear responses those locations have had to the development parameters, the need for them to be accorded that recognition as urban areas. This would, of course, further enable the state have more deliberate developmental plans for those locations. So you can determine that for some of these locations, it's going to be a dual highway running from point A to point B. You can also determine that these locations are going to have specific designations for the respective uses of land. So when you talk of agriculture, we're going to have designated areas for agriculture, for maybe residential purposes, and of course for industrial purposes. So those are the clarities that His Excellency has put to land use and the land administration in Enugu State.
All right, thank you. And I should, remind our viewers that Dr. Peter Mbah is a nominee for Governor of the Year at the upcoming This Day Awards. So everyone should tune into that. We'll see who ends up winning. He's up against the Governor of Lagos and some other governors there. But he's done quite a bit. I do want you to speak. The reason why I'm raising this is because of the number of initiatives he's put in place. So take us back a few weeks. We read that quote from the governor on the Enugu State's Geographic Information System. Can you give us a little more color on the ENGIS?
Thanks. The ENGIS, like we call it as an acronym, is a one-stop shop, essentially. It's a process to digitize and digitalize the entire land ecosystem in Enugu State. And what it does is to take all your processes to the digital platform. It has, of course, necessitated us digitizing the entire legacy processes and legacy systems we had. So that, recall that, of course, Enugu is a very old city. So we're talking of historical records that date back over 100 years before now. We have had to digitize all of this and send them to the digital platform. Now you can conduct your searches, you can regularize land documents, you can register fresh land titles, you can make an application for land online. And we are able to commit in line with the clear directives of His Excellency, Dr. Peter Mbah. We're able to commit to timelines and deliver based on those timelines. So that's how the ENGIS works. We're proud to, say that it's based on geospatial technology, a technology that has been tested, globally. It's a global best practice. I think there are a few other states that have also, like Abuja has the AGIS, we call it AGIS. So we're proud to be, top-notch in that realm of technology.
Great. Now, the enforcement of the land regulation also ENGIS as well. How do you ensure enforcement of these initiatives since you've got, sprawling land across the state? How do you make sure this is all enforced and works as it's supposed to be intended?
Yeah, so enforcement is, of course, critical to us in this entire process. And what His Excellency, the Governor, has directed is that we should make provision for a window period. This window period becomes like, a safe time. We're going to stipulate a timeline that everybody is encouraged to step up and regularize titles. The regulations makes provision for a recertification process of all titles, because we're going to be issuing a digitized certificate of occupancy with higher, more enhanced security features. We're going to dispense completely with the good old periods of multiple or double allocation of the same land, or abuse of use, where land that was clearly delineated for probably agriculture was probably erroneously allocated for residential purposes. So this system is going to totally dispense with all that. And so we're going to have a lot of clarity to the land process. That's how it's going to intertwine with the regulations. And then we are very excited at the designation of these urban areas, because it gives us a chance again to start and finish from the scratch. It dispenses with the experience of having to run after development. So now you're going to have a state-led development. We're going to be able to plan where it is not yet a slum, or where it is not yet an overcrowded area. What it is that we already see the parameters of a developing city, and when we move in there, based on the clear instructions and mandate of His Excellency the Governor, we're able to set out with our planning team, our town planning authorities, and do what would be a world-class planning for all these locations, for all the local governments and all the other cities that have been designated urban. There is going to be a road network that clearly, like His Excellency has said, becomes like a ring road connecting all of this. Ultimately, we're going to have an Enugu that is a state, but just one big city. And Enugu that is so well connected that it wouldn't matter where you live or where you operate from. You're able to run from one end of the state to the other end, probably to do work or to do business.
All right, fantastic. Look, Barrister, Honorable Commissioner, you know, so far we're having a real estate discussion, if you will, but I do want to, you did mention agriculture a little earlier, and I want to pivot a little bit to agriculture, because when we think of land, you know, I mean, yes, you think of real estate, but we also think of agriculture, right? Agriculture makes us think of food. Nigeria as a whole has a, you know, cost of living crisis. The President Tinubu has declared food state of emergency. Inflation in Enugu, headline inflation for November, 34.1%, I think. The nation is 34.6%. Food inflation in Enugu, 43.3%. The nation is at 39.93%. How do you think we can bring down, as far as Enugu is concerned, the cost of food? How do you think land regulation can play a role as far as agriculture and cost of food is concerned?
Very well. The approach adopted by His Excellency the Governor towards food and agriculture in general is a very holistic and all-encompassing one. It is an approach that recognizes it not just as in terms of food production, but as an agro-allied industry, one that is able to create jobs, one that is able to export, you know, to other states and even outside the country. So you discover that in the last 3 months, His Excellency has signed quite a couple of MOUs, PPPs, with investors. Recall that, of course, His Excellency signed a contract to revive the Sunrise Flour Mills of Enugu State. Recall also that the Songhai farm is also coming back live in Enugu. And then also recall that His Excellency has already put in place a policy which we call the food clusters, the farm clusters, which designates 200 hectares minimum in each political ward of Enugu State for farming. And there are deliberate infrastructure, deliberate processing plants being pushed down to those locations. If you run the maths that Enugu has 260 political wards, we're talking of 200 hectares in 260 locations around the state. So we are very confident, really, speaking from the perspective of lands administration, that the price of food, the inflation figures you had for November are already being crushed and that they will keep going down. We are very confident that Enugu is going to be an exporter of food and that Enugu will continue to support the federal government to resolve the food crisis in the nation, and that Enugu will be in the driver's seat to make sure that Nigeria gains back its pride of place as an exporter of several food commodities.
Thank you so much. Look, Honorable Commissioner, I just got a couple more questions for you. And this is on the Land Use Act. Now, when we talk about the positive side of the Land Use Act, we can point to what's happening in Enugu. You've listed everything. The food clusters, this land regulation, so many things the governor is doing. But there are some that feel there is too much power placed in the hands of governors when it comes to administering land. And some in the investment space feel that, I'm not talking about Enugu, this is across Nigeria now, feel that there's too much power in the hands of governors and that the Land Use Act should be repealed. I just want to play you just one clip from Ayo Ibaru, who is the CEO of North Court Real Estate. We had him on the Global Business Report. I want you to take a listen to what he said about the Land Use Act.
Into other areas. A good example here will be the Lekki-Ekpe expressway that is ongoing. I think it's Creamberg behind it. What you will find is as that road has made progress, the land values and the property values along both sides of that road have increased. But then there's a much bigger problem. It's the Land Use Act 1978. Honestly, if the Senate President really wants to help us, I think it's something that they need to look at because it's arguably the one stumbling block that needs to be dealt with. And And what does that do? Of course, it puts all power, control of land and property in the hands of the state governor. And then, of course, he can use that for overwhelming public good. But the problem is it has led to bureaucracy over the years, and it's rather inefficient. So it slows things down. You can't get funding in time. You can't plan properly.
So, Honorable Commissioner, what's your response? I mean, maybe I can guess what you'll say, but is there too much power in the hands of governors when it comes to the Land Use Act? Should it be repealed?
Well, I would start by asking Ayo to come to Enugu. And then probably he would get a different perspective. You know, the Land Use Act essentially puts all land under the administrative control of the governor in trust for the people of the state. And so it is a function of trust. And of course, it's not something we may be able to totally x-ray here, but a simplistic understanding of trust is already the fact that you have elected the person as a governor. So, and His Excellency Dr. Peter Mbah so fully understands the magnitude of the trust that the law has imposed on him. He understands also the trust that the people of Enugu have, put on his shoulders by electing him their governor. So what he is doing almost on a daily basis is to continue to think of how to enhance and optimize these land resources for the collective good of Enugu. Recall that His Excellency talks of totally wiping out the poverty index in Enugu and reducing it to a 0 point. So the only way you can do that is to enhance value. What he has done is to say to Enugu that your land has commercial value. If you're able to register and have title to it, you're able to do transactions. You're able to walk into the bank and probably get a facility. You're able to, do mortgages with your land. Before now, people just had emotional attachments or derived emotional value from these estates, these mansions built, probably in the satellite areas of the state, in the villages and in the hinterlands. They didn't even bother to have title because probably there was no contestation of title. But reality of today tells us that land in every modern society is actually a function of law. It is what the law recognizes as your land that is actually your land, not what your grandfather told you. So His Excellency is pushing out with this, trying to assure the Enugu that you have a lot to benefit by having title, valid and, properly registered title over your property. So that's our experience here, and that's why, like I said, I will be excited to have further discussions with Ayo, especially now that, the land is green in Enugu. So if there are real estate opportunities, we'll be very happy to have that conversation, even beyond this point.
All right, the land is green in Enugu. We'll leave it there. Barrister Okorie, Honorable Commissioner for Land and Urban Development in Enugu State, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate talking to you about the latest developments there.